I am Bree Holtz, the director of the Ethics Institute here at Michigan State University. I'm also a professor here at the College of Communication Arts and Sciences in the Department of Advertising Public Relations. This is the first of more than 30 events happening this week across campus and across disciplines, highlighting the ethical work that is underway at MSU and inviting all of us to be a part of that. With that, here are some logistics. Please drink coffee, water, tea, and then after that, the bathrooms are straight behind you. And students who are here for the Sona, please find Anna in the hot pink afterwards, and she will get you signed in. Now with that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Heidi Hennick-Kaminsky, Dean of our College of Communication Arts and Sciences, who is also a generous sponsor of this event today. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Bree. Welcome to the College of Communication Arts and Sciences and to WKAR. We are so glad you are all here. It is such a privilege to be able to host the opening event for Michigan State University's Ethics Week. I cannot think of a more fitting place to begin this important conversation. Here in our classrooms, studios, labs, and newsrooms, artificial intelligence is already reshaping how we communicate, report, teach, and conduct research and creative activity. The pace of change is remarkable and the implications profound. That is why today's conversation, The Now of AI Ethics, Frightening, Exciting, feels so timely. AI represents extraordinary opportunities for innovation and discovery, and at the same time raises urgent questions about responsibility, transparency, authorship, bias, and trust. Every one of us in this room today helps shape how those tools are used and how they are understood by the public. We are especially grateful to be joined by Dr. Wes Fondren, Associate Professor for AI, Academic Technology, and Professional Development at Coastal Carolina University. In his role as Associate Provost, he oversees artificial intelligence initiatives, as well as the Office of Professional Development and the Office of Academic Technology. He sees technologies such as artificial intelligence as powerful tools to empower both faculty and students in the learning process and to prepare graduates for successful careers. He is deeply rooted in our field, serving at CCU since 2009 as Chair of Communication, Media, and Culture and as Associate Dean. Dr. Fondren earned a BA in Psychology from the University of Alabama, a Master's of Divinity from Samford University, and a PhD in Communication and Information Science with a focus in Cognitive Psychology from the University of Alabama. His work spans communication, technology, and psychology. He spent 20 years in technology leadership, the last 5 years overseeing operations for 45 companies as Director of Technology for Boone Media. Recently, he has been advising universities on responsible AI strategy in higher education. Dr. Fondren, thank you for being here and for helping us launch Ethics Week, a conversation that is as urgent as it is exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I want to start off by saying thank you. Matter of fact, let me get on my. I've got several wires on, and so let me get adjusted here. All right. Let me start out by saying thank you. First, thank you to the dean for her role and me being here for that extremely kind introduction, and to Associate Dean Torn. Is he still in here? He has been fantastic. Dr. Torn was the first person that I think I ended up speaking with about this opportunity. I was telling someone a few minutes ago, he hasn't just done the heavy lifting for working with, he's done all the lifting, and these last few weeks have been really busy for me, and he's been absolutely wonderful. And so everybody that I've interacted with at Michigan State has been fantastic. I'm really excited about being here, and I'm gonna go ahead and dive in. And one of the really important things I want to do at the front end, and this ties into the dean's background, is talk about expectations for this talk. In fact, in communication, we have whole sets of theories that deal with communication. How communication expectations are often pre-communication, where you're walking around with an expectation of what's about to happen, and you can violate someone's expectation without even realizing it sometimes at the beginning of a conversation. And so I want to start out by talking about what this talk is not. And one of the reasons I do that is because I get asked to do lots of AI ethics talks or be a part of AI ethics panels. You can probably imagine, I'm sure some of you do as well. Michigan State is doing fantastic stuff when it comes to AI ethics. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in here. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I'm not going to do in this talk. And the first thing I'm not going to do is try to persuade anybody. I don't want to be coy. I am pro AI. It's my job, and I'm in the process of trying to help our entire university become more AI forward and find all the places that we can empower our faculty and empower our students and empower our staff. One of the groups of people that gets left out of a lot of these talks are staff, and we're seeing nationally much more rapid uptake by staff than we are faculty. Matter of fact, it's an interesting bubble. We're seeing a bubble of students that are very AI resistant that are graduating out now, and some of the high school students that are coming in seem to be embracing AI more than the sort of the pocket of students that were there when AI arrived. And there's a resistance to it. But staff have been amazing at other universities, at my university for sure. And so, which is a testimony to what's happening in the marketplace, which I'll talk about here in a second. So I'm not going to try to persuade anybody. If you hate AI and you're here for class credit, or you heard there was free coffee or something like that and came, I'm not going to try to persuade you. I probably couldn't persuade you even if I wanted to, and it's not my goal. And by the way, I'm going to talk quickly. I have a lot of stuff to cover. I know I have a thick Southern accent, and I know fast Southern sounds a lot like cursive. And so if I start sounding, going too fast, just wave your hand or something and I'll slow down. So I'm not going to try to persuade, but I'm also not going to talk about AI, how bad AI is. Now, this is probably a little bit of a expectation twist. I hope for somebody it's an expectation twist. Because very, very often when I get asked to talk about AI ethics, it's code for, come tell us how bad AI is. And matter of fact, I told my partner, I will never go to an ethics talk called The Ethics of Ice Cream. Because I've learned enough going to ethics talks recently to realize that's going to make me not like ice cream or make me think about all the bad things about ice cream. And so we have a slew of problems with AI. From some of the ones the dean mentioned to environmental to economic, even categories of AI. If you just talk about the data center problems, or if you talk about the workplace inequities, and there are enormous problems with AI. And I'm going to hit a few of them just because you can't get to an ethics talk without talking about some of the problems. But I'm gonna take a different approach to it. I hope a little bit different approach than you've heard before. And I also recognize that every audience I talk to is diverse. That there are probably people in this room that think AI is evil, that think AI is the new savior of society. It's the thing that's going to cure cancer and solve all our problems and be wonderful. I'm definitely not going there. My father knows nothing about AI, and he came to a talk I was giving in New Orleans, and he came up at the very beginning. I'm a first generation academic, and so Dad didn't make it through 10th grade. And so he came up to me and he gave me a hug at the beginning, and it was a real sweet hug. It was like something was wrong. And he gave me a hug and like touched my face and stuff, and then went and sat in the back row. And after it was over, he said, "Hey, that wasn't so bad." I was like, "Well, thanks, Dad. I was hoping for something better than that wasn't so bad." And he said, "No, what I was trying to tell you at the beginning was that I love you, even if you're about to talk about something evil." And I was like, "Where did that come from?" And he said, "Well, I was reading in the AARP about how bad AI is." And so even in my own family, I have plenty of people that think AI is evil, and there are definitely some nefarious parts, things that are going on, and some. Oh, is that coming through? I recognize the diversity of the audience. I also want to recognize that every single person in this room probably has a strong opinion about AI. Like, before this became such a hot topic, I still did talks about other things, and I never really talked about things that people had such passionate thoughts about. I was at Northwestern actually back in May, and I was getting on a plane to go to Chicago, and the guy beside me sat down and he asked me what I did for a living, and I had just got my title out. I said, "Well, I'm a professor, and I talk about AI," and that was all it took. And we were at cruising altitude when when he stopped talking. So the first 20 minutes of the flight, he was telling me everything about what should be happening with AI and regulations and education and all sorts of things. And so once he was kind of done, I asked him, I was like, "So what do you do in the industry?" And he said, "Oh, I drive a backhoe. I don't have anything to do with AI." And the lady that cuts my hair has really strong opinions. I need me to switch it out? Okay. The lady that cuts my hair has really strong opinions. And so I want to start off by at least acknowledging some of those things that everybody in this room has a strong opinion, probably a well founded opinion. And it's probably on a spectrum from AI is wonderful, let's get as much as we can, to it's terrible. Is there any way we can mitigate it and prevent it? And, um, and it's one of the negative parts of my job. Like last week, someone at my university said something really ugly to me and a faculty member. And after he left, the person that was chairing the committee said, "You're just kind of an avatar for AI on campus." And so I get a lot of that sort of directed animosity toward AI. And so it's one of the things I love about being the outsider. Like I may say some things today that you completely disagree with, and then Wednesday I'll be on an airplane. And so it's one of the wonderful things about coming in and getting to give these kind of talks. And I hope it's affirming because also hearing from the outside, you're doing a great job. And Michigan State is doing an amazing job. Maybe at the top of the games that I've seen at universities. And so I'm also not going to talk about AI being the thing that's coming. We've all heard tons of those talks. AI is not the thing that's coming. It is. Oh, is it not broadcasting? Okay. While he's doing that, I'll offer another qualifier. Um, and this one is strange to me. You could pull out your phone right now and start reading about AI, and know significantly more about about areas of AI than I do by the end of this talk. The information is changing so fast and so rapidly that it is impossible to stay on top of it. Um, uh, all of you probably know significant portions of AI things that I don't know about. Mine is I built my first AI server in 2001, which I find ironic if you know what the movie 2001 is about. But I started working with it a long time ago, and so I know it from the tech side, and I know it from the academic side. And so, but there are huge pockets of it, especially when it comes to research, which we're going to be talking about later today and tomorrow, that I love learning about. So we're good. So it's not the thing that's coming; it's the thing that's already here. Last week I spoke at a medical school about AI, and I pulled up some research, and I don't know any of these titles. Like I don't know what any of these really mean. But when I was talking to the head of the medical school, one of the things they were telling me was that AI is now exceeding the abilities of physicians to do the work of physicians when it comes to reading images and diagnosing in particular and a handful of other things. The work that's being done, this is research that was done b- s- 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Matter of fact, you guys are a really smart audience. Did you notice anything about all those articles that I posted up there? Anybody notice anything common about them? They were all published in the last 10 days. And so it's not just that it's happening, it's that it's been happening, it's going on. That's just one small sector, not to mention engineering and education and all the other ones that are happening here at Michigan State. Matter of fact, that's one of the other things that I'm not going to be talking about is that it's out there, this thing that's out there that's happening. It is happening here very deeply. Matter of fact, I put together a list, and that's not all of it. I just knew it would be too small if I tried to get it all on one screen, of just some of the researchers that are doing work with AI, building AI, we're infusing AI into their research, AI centers. That's just here at Michigan State, which is astounding. It is remarkable what all is going on here and outside. Um, and then the last thing that I'm not going to talk about, and you probably picked up on this, I'm talking about things, but I'm not talking about them, and that is being afraid of it. I know that there are lots of people that have lots of fear about AI. Matter of fact, it wakes me up in the night quite often. I'll wake up in the night with a new fear. Matter of fact, I got a meeting with the IT department here today to talk about a fear that I mentioned to them. I do a lot of prep work before these talks, and I was Zooming with them a few weeks ago. I mentioned a couple of my fears, and they're like, yep, yep, okay, well, now we have new fear unlocked. And so the talk I was doing at the medical school last week, about 3/4 of the way through my presentation, someone raised their hand and they asked a question, and I said, oh, you can't do that. It's a HIPAA violation. And one of the deans raised their hand and said, could you look back, why would that be a HIPAA violation? And so I explained about what was going on, and the dean got up and left. And I thought, uh-oh, I think I may have offended that dean. There were a few deans there that might have offended that dean. And when I was done, the dean stopped me and said, I've contacted our IT department. They'd like to talk to you about that hole that you're talking about. And it's a problem. I mean, it scares me. Frightening, exciting. I mean, the subject line, or the subtitle of this talk. And so it's absolutely appropriate to be afraid, to have some fear. Matter of fact, I was talking with your dean a minute ago about Socrates. One of the first people we ever know of to stand up and say that technology is going to destroy society was Socrates 2,400 years ago. And he was talking about the written word. He was scared to death of it. Matter of fact, I went and read the Attic Greek. He said, it will introduce forgetfulness to the human soul, which sounds awful. And I'm sure that the people that were alive during their time thought, that is a really smart guy, and he says that thing is bad. We should probably stay away from it. And the weirdest part is, he was probably right. I mean, does anybody in here make grocery list? Why do you make grocery list? Ha ha ha! Yes, thank you for saying that. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Usually someone will say, so I don't forget anything, but he said it spot on. I will forget it if I don't write it down. That's what he was afraid of. That once you write things down, your brain says, I don't even know this anymore. And I'm embarrassed. I am embarrassed to tell you this next thing. I have 4 kids. And about 2 months ago, I was actually in Michigan giving a talk at another school, and my phone died, and I had to have another one overnighted to my hotel. So I get this phone, I run back to the hotel, I get this phone, I hop back in the car, I'm headed to the next talk, I turn on the new phone, and it's trying to log in and sync and all that kind of stuff, but I need to make a phone call. I need to call my son. And I had a terrible, embarrassing thought. You know what the thought was? I don't know my son's phone number. Like, I've only got four kids. There's 4 phone numbers. Of all the phone numbers in the world that I should know, those 4 should be, I should have them memorized. I had memorized my daughter. I had to call her and get her brother's phone number. And that's what Socrates was afraid of. Like, once we start writing it down, we're going to trust that piece of paper more than we trust our memory, and we're going to let go of it. He could see my students, 2,400 years ago, he could see my students saying, Dr. Fondren, why do I need to know this when I can just Google it? That's what he was afraid of. You write things down. If you let a piece of paper remember things for you, you're going to stop remembering it. Was he writing? Yes and no, right? Yeah, yes and no. And a lot of the fears we have about AI are legitimate fears. We should have fears about some of this. Every technology, major technology change comes with fear. I teach a class on technology adoption. And I mean, it's hard to find a big technology that was adopted that didn't come with a lot of fear. The printing press. The largest organization in the world, the authority in the world at that time, stood up and said, this is bad. This is dangerous. I don't think you realize how dangerous this new media tool is, because if you let people start learning how to read and reading a Bible for themselves, then they're going to think they can figure out their own theology, and you're going to have a church on every corner. I would love to invite you to come back to South Carolina with me, where we have a church on every corner. So I made something for you. And this is not for you to use, although you sure can. It's for your friend that may be afraid of AI. And one of the things we know about technology adoption is that it's difficult for people to adopt technologies when they do have a lot of fear, uncertainty, high degrees of uncertainty, and they don't have a chance to process those fears and stuff. And so I made something that you can give your friend. It's a playground, but it's a playground for ideas, and it is not being recorded. It is completely anonymous. There's matter of fact, you could come into this anyway. It's a Google Gym, and so you can come into this any way you want to. You can create a fake Google account if that makes you feeling better, or use your friends and just go to this link or something. And it is not for persuading. This is not, send it to your friend and all of a sudden they're going to fall in love with AI. It's the opposite. It's a safe space to explore ideas, and all this does is clarifies and asks questions. It allows people to follow the paths of their own thinking so that they can try out different perspectives. And they can say, I hate AI, I'm scared of it, and it will engage and interact, and they can follow that line of thinking and explore it. And then they can come back 5 minutes later and say, I love AI, or here are my concerns, or whatever. And it's just a playground. One of the things that we know from research is that when you can create a psychologically safe space for people to explore, it allows for some uncertainty reduction. And it allows for some of the fear to start to dissipate a little bit. And so I've got a few other things for you here that I hope will be helpful, but feel free to share that with your friend. Here's the question I have. So what am I not talking about? I'm actually going to just ask one question. And this is an ethics talk. Is it possible, or is it maybe even likely, that it is unethical to not be using AI? I've already told you that I'm pro AI, and so again, I'm not trying to be coy. I'm not trying to be goofy, but I do think there's something to this. To think about what is the cost of not using AI, and that was what I was hoping we could talk about. By the way, if you have questions during it, please feel free to ask. I usually those are fun. Moments that somebody is thinking what everybody else in the room is thinking, or I have forgotten something and gotten so busy. And so please don't hesitate to ask questions. But I want to explore this for a few minutes. And this is really what I'm here to talk about, is the question itself. And we have a significant number of people that are avoiding AI. Oh, she was offended. That was my AI on my phone chiming in. We have a significant number of people that are avoiding AI in academics. The marketplace doesn't seem to be as resistant in some ways. I do a talk at orientation, at Coastal's orientation. We do a 1-hour talk called First Lecture, and we require all the students to come to the first lecture and their parents. And then we have a class, an online class that we sell to parents called A Deeper Dive of AI, with AI. And it gives parents an opportunity to see, to learn more about AI, to figure out what their students are going to be using, because we require AI at Coastal for a lot of our classes, like some of you do here at the AI Ready program. You guys that have the Spartan AI Ready program. Anyway, it's been really interesting how much the parents want to know and learn about AI. Not for their children. I had a class of 600 in July. It was an online class, 600 parents. And they asked tons of questions, and not a single question was about how to help their child use AI in college, which is really what the talk was about. They were all about their workplace. They're like, well, if you were a mechanical engineer in Atlanta and you had to do whatever, or if you were an industrial psychologist and that sort of thing. And so we see a real hunger from parents, hunger in the marketplace, our staff, as I mentioned. But we see pockets of resistance inside academics more than some other fields. And for good reason, the fear, right? But I want to talk about specifically that avoidance. Matter of fact, you may know this. There's an AI resistance society. I talked to a lady at University of Arkansas who's one of the founders of it, and they're committed. They're committed to promoting resistance to AI in higher education. And just like Socrates, some of the stuff they're worried about is legitimate stuff to be worried about. But I have a concern, that's the reason for this question, that avoiding it altogether may be unethical. And, all right, let me give an example of what I mean in some practical ways. Avoiding it when it comes to learning. And so I'm going to try to put this in specific domains, and I'm going to try to be really practical. One of the other things that happens for me in a lot of ethics talks is they become big and swirly, and they never get on the ground. So one of the reasons I wanted to give you that playground thing, so you could have some stuff you got some things in your hand when you leave. I'm gonna give you a couple other ones here in a few minutes. This may be falling out. So let me mention something about our world. In 2010, the best estimate we have, or from multiple sources, the estimates seem to be similar, that we as a human race we're creating 2 zettabytes of data a day. That's a lot. That's a lot of information. We have a marine science program at our school. That's our biggest degree is marine science. And so I went over to the marine science. They have their own data science people. And so I went over to talk to one of the data science people, and I was like, "Hey, 2 zettabytes a day. What are we talking about?" He said, "I'll give you a frame of reference. That's 10 bits of information, like 10 little pieces of information for every grain of sand on the planet. That's a lot. That's a lot. 2 of those in 2010. And as you can see from this slide, last year they think it was 181 a day. So just in the last 15 years, we have gone from producing 2 zettabytes of data a day to 181, with the estimate that we're going to be creating about 1,000 a day in 2030. A conservative estimate that we're going to be creating 1,000 a day, which is called a yottabyte, because AI is generating a lot of content for us now. And I don't know. I don't know how to keep up in this world. It is an ocean of information that we are drowning in at this moment. I don't know how to help my students, how to help my children navigate a world that is awash with information without some tools. Tools that I've never seen work as well as the AI tools. Matter of fact, I'm tempted to drop out and show you this. Let me drop out. Oh, I created a slide for this. One of my favorite tools you have on campus. There's only a few universities that have really adopted this. Lots of universities are starting to get licenses for it, and some of you, I'm sure, use this tool all the time. One of my favorite tools is Notebook LM, and I'm sure there are people in this room that use it, and I'll tell you how I use it to help with this problem. I spend 1 to 2 hours a day reading about AI every day. I get up in the morning, I make coffee, I go to my curated list. I have a couple of agents that I created. They go harvest stuff for me, especially as it relates to AI and education and those sorts of things. And so I spend an hour to 2 hours every morning just reading this information, but I'm constantly coming across things that I don't have time to read. Now, this is an important disclaimer. I'm not talking about things that I have to read. Provost sends me a message and says, "You have to read this file." I read that file. I'm talking about those 1,000 yottabytes, or the yottabyte of data that's coming across my path that it would be really great if I knew something about. And so what happens for me, and I do this a lot on my phone, I come across an article or a PDF or a link or something, and I just share it to Notebook LM. And you can see up here, I create one every Monday morning. Do you need to come up? I create one every Monday morning. And then I dump I traveled all week last week, so I only had 2 articles in there. I dump articles in there. You can put just about any kind of file format you want, PDFs, web links, YouTube videos, spreadsheets, you name it. Most weeks I have about 10 to 15 articles that I want to read. There's a section I can chat with it, which is fine. I don't chat a whole lot with the articles. I do some of the other items in there. But I have a 12-minute drive home on Fridays. I live 12 minutes from campus, and so on Fridays, I have custom designed, and you can go design your own audio overviews. I custom design an audio overview for myself to listen to that is just a newscast of those stories that I want to know about. And let's see if I can do this here.
Picture this. It's late and deep in the Zoom.
So
I can request.
they're going to talk about these articles for me. And so I get to listen to them on the way home. And I usually do 2 or 3 of these a week, sometimes around specific topics. Uh-oh.
And then, hey, Arsenal wants to join in.
Hey, I'm here at Michigan State University with the Dean of the College of Communication and Fine Arts and a bunch of other dignitaries and smart people. Adjust this whole thing for Michigan State.
Well, hello there.
Wow, that is an honor.
That is fantastic.
We are honored to have especially the dean and the dignitary.
They have bigger concept.
Yeah, we'll do out of the cooling for that.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that
They're gonna talk for 12 minutes, and so I don't want that. But this helps me digest massive amounts of information. Let's see. I may need help getting this back up again. Let's see. Helps me digest massive amounts of information. Now, apart from being a party trick, like telling it to adjust for you guys, I use that all the time. I hit the little button and I say, I don't know what you mean by conversational amplified prompt engineering. Can you explain that before you go forward? Or sometimes I'll dump a large file in there, like a 70-page PDF that I've got a 30-minute drive, and I need some people to talk about that and give me an overview. And there's a lot of other things you can do with it. You can have it debate the articles, and you can have it. I use it a lot with my students, where I put 2 or 3 articles in there, and I have a podcast created for them to listen to. Not because they don't. I need for them to be familiar with the articles and be able to get back to them, and so I create something like that. And there's a lot of other. Later this afternoon, I'm going to be talking about the many ways to partner with AI when it comes to learning and teaching, and this is one of them. We teach all of our freshmen how to use it. You can see. I don't have it up here. We have them build a weekly notebook every week for their different classes, and so they'll have a history notebook for that week and an English notebook, and they'll dump their photocopy of their notes or their typed notes. So if the teacher will let them record their lectures, and they'll dump them in there, and they'll put any handouts and stuff, and then they can create a summary report, they can create quizzes, they can create all sorts of things. And so learning has changed dramatically. And one of the pieces of good news and bad news that we have for our students is increased equipping means increased expectations. One of my concerns is that the expectations of students are not keeping up with the tools that they're getting their hands on. And so I think that'll come up later in a different talk. But this is one of the ways that I try to stay up on the ocean of information. How will we? Yes.
One of the things that is a big problem in my field has been that we've seen that the large language model got boosted. And so where I tried to use many of these tools, it's getting critical information wrong. And it feels like it's built on a house of cards. So I can see some of the things where it's encouraging you to think great and giving you a quiz. Positive because you can practice it. And if it's wrong, well, okay, it's not the end of the world. But one of the big concerns I have about having it digest my papers is we had case that there's a really lovely cock in the physics department where it barfs out a beautiful summary that's just totally wrong. And unless you're an expert, you're not going to flag. So do you have thoughts on addressing that? I think that's where a lot of my fear.
I do. I have several thoughts about that. So the first thought is, I want to affirm what you just said. Absolutely. Matter of fact, I'm giving a talk tomorrow morning called the $1 Million Suitcase. Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell it to you now, so don't come tomorrow. Okay? It's a talk about the analogy I'm about to use. Imagine that I told everyone in this room, somebody's going to win $1 million for being here today. Reach under your seat. There's a number. Whoever has the number 13 wins. And I know your name. Your name's John, right? John helped me out before. So John reaches under his seat and he pulls it out and he says, I've got number 13. I say, congratulations, John, you've just won $1 million. And he gets up and dances around and says, see you suckers later, I'm out of here. You'll never see me again. And he comes dancing down front to get his money. And as he's coming down, I reach under the podium and I pull out 2 suitcases and I open them up right here on the stage for him, and it's full of cash. I mean, you can see stacks and stacks of tightly wound $100, just like in the movies. You can smell it out in the audience. And so as he's coming down front, I close them up and I hand them to him and I say, John, I need to mention one last thing. You may not know this, but $1 million will fit in a single suitcase. What you have here is a blended mix of actual money and counterfeit money. And if you're careful, you're going to live probably a life of leisure and you can go retire and enjoy your millions or whatever. But if you're not careful, you're probably going to do some pretty hard jail time because these are high-end counterfeits. And he's like, well, what? Why would you do that to me? What horrible thing to do to a person? That's what we're doing to our students. We are sending them into a world where counterfeit information looks remarkably similar to actual information. And if they are not trained on these tools, if our faculty are not trained on these tools, are not embracing them to the point of knowing how to use them and when they're right and when they're wrong, it makes it difficult to be able to know how to recognize counterfeit. the kind of problems. Now, that's the first thought I have is you're absolutely right. I've said this to several board of directors. We have never needed higher education more than we need it at this moment because we need people that are absolute masters. Where there might have been a place in the past where someone could graduate and not be completely competent in their field when they go into it and learn in the field, that day is probably fading. They need to be masters when they leave here in their field to be able to say, hey, that's not an accurate legal brief. Or that looks like real data, but that's synthetic data. That's not right. It doesn't pass the sniff test. And that's a level of learning that is very different than what happened when I was going through college. This is what I was talking about a minute ago about one of my fears, ethical fears, is that we're not changing our expectations. The world changed. And we have huge numbers of faculty, and I don't know anyone in this room, and so this is not directed at anybody, to people at my school, that are close to retirement. Or they just got all their courses figured out. And they spent years, getting them figured out, and then COVID happened, and then after COVID, now, someone's coming along and saying, hey, you can't use essays anymore. Or, hey, you can't do that. The forum posts, they're not writing them. I like bread. I like bread too. Bread's so great. They're not doing any of that anymore. And so it's matter of fact, a little side note that is unrelated to this, because it looks like most of the people in here are faculty. I made a new hire in the AI department, the Office of Artificial Intelligence, back in October. You know who I hired? It wasn't a machine learning person, wasn't a social media person, it wasn't even an assistant, which I was desperate for a couple of assistants. I hired a faculty wellness director. You know what I'm most concerned about right now? Faculty mental health. Super concerned about it. Change, pressure, change. Washington, student loans, demographic cliff, pick an earthquake. And they seem to be happening. We just finished, or we just came through a pandemic where everybody had to redesign their classes and move online for a year or whatever. And so we're seeing wave after wave after wave of pounding on our faculty. And I'm really concerned about it. It's not going to come out like someone saying, we have all formed a block and would like to go to yoga together to help us. It's going to come out through hostility. And it's going to come out through anger and anxiety and burnout and so many of the things that happen when anxiety gets to high levels and stress and stuff. And so your question is fantastic. And there's absolutely, we need to be drilling down on critical thinking skills. All of my AI tools that I use with my students are critical thinking tools. I don't think I have a single one that's just for speeding things up. And they hate it because you know what happens when you have critical thinking tools? It hurts your brain. That's exactly right. And I'm trying to make them as fun as I can, but it is where I had, for the very first time last spring, I had a AI only class. I said that wrong. I had a class that everyone was required to use AI. I told them beforehand. I emailed them during registration. They knew it coming in. They knew it the first day. I told them in the syllabus. And they stayed. First time in my 20 years of teaching, I had a bimodal distribution. What? Two averages? Two means? And it was discouraging. I found that about half of the class, when I gutted all the busy work and I did away with all of the fill this out and do this thing, and it was just the thinking part of it. And I interviewed some of them in April of spring and just had a conversation with them. And you know what a bunch of them said? It's just too hard. I mean, like thinking for 10 seconds is exhausting. We would do prompt writing exercises on paper where they had to write a prompt and then hand them in, that kind of thing. And I would watch students write for like 5 or 10 seconds and then put their pen down. And I would say, this is the sweet spot. This is where you become good at partnering with AI. Why are you stopped? And he's like, I don't know. I just can't think of anything else. It's hard. So the first is, you're absolutely right. The second is, these are learning systems. They are getting significantly better at not hallucinating, and they're doing it at an exponential speed. If you used any of them 3 years ago, you know what I'm talking about. You ask it a question about you, and you got garbage. And then last year, maybe you did it, and you're like, hey, I got a couple things wrong. This year, you do it, and you realize, wow, that's shocking how much it knows about me. Like if you go to your favorite AI and say, profile me based on what you know about me, They're getting better. And so the problem that we've had with inaccurate information is changing. And there are levels, obviously. And it may be that we were talking to a high school student when it first came out, and now a college student. And training. If you know how to write a good prompt, a really good prompt, you can get around the hallucination. If you know how to have it do hermeneutical cycling, where it goes through its own work multiple times and checks and confirms before it gives it to you. Now, it costs a little bit, especially those of you that are having to pay for tokens and credits, but having it do a couple of passes where it validates the information and evaluates and improves it, does a couple of laps around its own information, that helps. That's part of what I'm talking about this afternoon, is about learning how to be a good partner, because most people are just thrown to the wolves. They're like, go write prompts. It looks a lot like searching, but it's different, and figure it out. And you guys have some great training. As a matter of fact, I think I've got a slide for that if I get to it, which I'm probably not going to get to it. And the companies know this, that we're awash, that we're drowning in an ocean of information. And so they're not only providing tools like Notebook LM, but they're doing a lot of the training for us. This is a really complicated ethical area. I am not teaching my students the subject matter alone anymore. I am teaching my students how to learn with AI and helping them learn how to learn with it that I help them evaluate. I have 28 AI agents that are teaching my 28 students, that builds learning profiles for all of them that they're interacting with. Think of it like a textbook chapter that I give them assignments in every week, except the chapter is talking to them and creating diagrams and videos and figuring out that it's a textbook chapter that's learning their learning style. If you believe in learning styles, it's adapting to their preferences and building a profile for them. That's a very different thing in the classroom, because my expectations are really high when you roll in on Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning. If I dumped everything that AI needed to train you on into a folder, you interacted with it for 2 hours until it evaluated and said you've reached mastery, approaching mastery. I have a competency-based rubric that it uses when it's interacting to eventually it says, okay, you've reached a mastery level on this topic, and they come to class on Tuesday morning, we're ready to talk. I love it. I love being able to interact with people that have done the reading, so to speak, if you know what I mean. And they all have wonderful tools. And some of these are amazing. LearnLM is a project that Google has going with Stanford and Wisconsin. Maybe you all. I haven't looked to see who the other schools were, but I know those two. But it's a large language model that's been fine-tuned just for teaching. And that's all. It's bad at other things, but it's good at that, which is another part of the training. And the critical thinking part. So those of you that are teachers, if you're curious about what your students believe about using AI, this one's a tool that I like a lot. It doesn't really debate. It's a little bit of a disclaimer. It's trying to set the expectations that the students would think that they were about to debate. What it does is it just asks non-confrontational Socratic questions about the person's opinion. And if you get a chance to play with it later, you can play with it. It does it 5 times. It'll do it 5 times, and then it provides a transcript. Like I have my student, you're welcome to use this as much as you'd like, or never use it. I have the students the first day of class. I say your assignment before you come back is you have to do this. It's only going to ask you 5 rounds of questions. It'll provide a full transcript. Upload your transcript into our learning management system, and then I take all of and I tell them I will be randomly sampling. So make sure the things you say are things you're willing to stand by in class, because I may point to you and say, "Hey Billy, you said using AI was worse than atomic bombs." Or no, you got to stand by what you type in there. I take all of their responses. I dump them into AI. I do a theme analysis, content analysis. I find where things are missing, like transparency and authorship and stuff like that. And it gives me a chance, and I have a bunch of these, it gives me a chance to just kind of put my finger on the class's thoughts in ways that I can't do by pointing and saying, "Hey, Sarah, what do you think?" And so if you get a chance to play with this or have your students play with it, I hope you like it. And I hope what you're starting to see, and some of you are probably at the front end of this, Education has changed. The tools, the equipping, the expectations that my students need to go out into the world, that I feel like, this is part of my question, am I doing something unethical if I'm doing it the old way? Is the marketplace they're heading into, which I'll get to here in a second, expecting something different than I'm creating? So I know a lot of you are researchers. I'm going to do this super fast. If I were to ask you who wears a white coat to work, if I were to ask a normal person on the street, Family Feud, come down front, put your hand on the buzzer, 100 people surveyed, who wears a white coat to work, what do you think the number one answer would be? Exactly, doctor. And I've done this talk probably 400 times. I've never heard anybody say anything different than doctor. Doctor is the number one spot for most people. We call that psychological proximity, meaning if I were to ask you to name 3 soft drinks, Coca-Cola and Pepsi are probably going to be in the psychologically close for you. And then maybe it's something else like pharmacist. And eventually, if we think about it for a while, we may get to some more distant, psychologically distant concepts like butcher. But I'd be willing to bet that we would have to stay in here a long time to come up with an idea like this. Can you see? By the way, AI is amazing at humor, because humor is often an unexpected connection in a neural network. It's a concept that's already there that there's no link to, and when an unexpected link gets made, we have a physiological response. It's great at it. And your brain has, all these concepts linked in all sorts of ways. Doctors and pharmacists get, trained with medicine. Doctors and butchers, get paid to use a knife sometimes, for work or whatever. You have all sorts of connections in your brain. And you know this is what the current version of AI is built on. 8 years ago, the thing that changed was in DeepMind created the transformer technology, the T in ChatGPT, that allowed it to build out from ground up neural networks by reading text, basically. That was when the game really started changing and a different type of AI was born. Anybody know how long it takes to count to 1 million? Don't say 1 million seconds. 11 days. Anybody know how long it takes to count to 1 billion? 31 years. That's the space between 1 million and 1 billion. If I say I'm gonna give you a bunch of money in 11 days, I'm gonna give you a bunch of money in 31 years, big difference. Anybody know how long it takes to count to 1 trillion? 31,977 years and some change. 11 days, 31 years, 32,000 years is what we're really talking about, the census scale. The current version, 5.2, maybe 3, I don't know how much, what subscription you have, of ChatGPT has over 3 trillion connections. 3 trillion. 3 trillion of these connections. It can do orders of magnitude of creativity that I will never be able to do today. Not 6 months from now, which who knows how it would be in 6 months from now. The version 6 of ChatGPT we think will have around 5 trillion. They're not really telling us. We don't know how many Google has because they won't share that information. But we're talking about neural networks, connections of concepts, reasoning models and stuff that are the thing I showed you. That was one of the reasons I showed you the medical ones at the beginning about how it has gotten significantly better than physicians at reading CAT scans and diagnosis and this sorts of things. Matter of fact, there's a piece of research that came out about 2 months ago. The real problem we're having is that the doctors that use the new AI tools become bad when the AI tool is removed. That they actually scored worse after using it for 3 months. They used it for 90 days, then they took it away, and they found that their performance on some tests had declined. But if my mama is going to the doctor and I got to choose between just the doctor and the doctor using AI, I'm happy that his brain, I'm sad that his brain or her brain doesn't think as well, but for my people I love, I want you partnering with AI for that one. And so I have concerns that forfeiting access to these empowering tools when it comes to research might be an ethical choice. Just at Michigan State, there is an enormous amount of research that's being done, also medical and engineering and all sorts of other areas that are not possible without these sorts of access to neural networks. What if it's an ethical choice to skip it? I don't think I have time to run through this, but I'll just tell you there's a lot of data that says that we're going to lose about 2.5 million jobs while picking up 11. This is the exact thing that we saw in other huge innovations. When I was 12 years old, there was a made-for-TV movie on ABC. I'm old, and when I was a kid, on Sunday night there were 3 stations, and on Sunday night ABC ran a movie. Sometimes it was a Disney movie, and one Sunday night, it's supposed to be for families. One Sunday night, it was about how computers were going to take over all the jobs in the future. Computers and robots. This was 1983. I remember going to bed that night as a 12-year-old and thinking, I don't know why I'm going to high school. What's the point? Computers are just going to be in everybody's jobs, doing all sorts of things. They can do so much stuff that we can't do. I don't even know what's the point of high school. And I remember not being able to sleep that night. Vivid memories of not being able to sleep, thinking it's hopeless. We have students graduating that feel that now. If AI can do all this stuff, what's the point? Do we have an ethical obligation to train them for that marketplace? You've probably heard this a bunch of times already, because I hear it about once every 2 weeks, that AI is not going to take your job, but somebody that knows how to use AI will. It's an adaptation of a much older quote. I have concerns that, and I'm not going to tear through all these, there's a lot of data about how the marketplace is changing and the absolute thirst. Here at MSU, there's an article that came out 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, January 25th, by Dr. Susarla. Am I saying that right? Susarla? Who's a professor of responsible AI use here at MSU, about how the marketplace is changing, and it's creating more work. Less work in the C-suite, more work in with the white-collar positions and the entry-level positions, the things that we're training a lot of our students for, that it's creating a strange paradox that we've seen before. It has a name. I'm concerned that avoiding AI and training our students on AI may have very negative implications for their workplace preparedness. We have a class at Coastal right now going 1,000 students called AI for College. And it's about application tracking systems and AI interviewers and a lot of the tools that are being used. It's also getting them some literacy before they walk out the door, because we have a generation of students that it just fell in their lap, and some of them are avoiding it or afraid of it. A lot of them are very confused. One teacher is hostile, and the other one says, you got to know this. And this has happened for them in a very, very short period of time. You guys have a wonderful D2L class that's free that they can use. Matter of fact, I think I put a slide for it in here somewhere. And obviously, you have done tremendous work on here at MSU about how to ethically use AI. You have a whole center for part of this. I wanted to end by just saying 3 things real quickly. The first is, it is imperative that everybody continue their training constantly. The days of getting training once a year, I'm over professional development. The days of going to professional development once a year, or once in the fall, once in the spring, putting it on your CV at the end of the year and saying I did professional development, those days are over. These tools are moving too fast, and there's too much innovation. There's too much application in the marketplace, and you have this is one of the things I was going to mention. You have training that comes up all the time. This is your class for faculty and students on how to use AI responsibly, and it's going to need to be updated. Oh, thank you for telling me that. Thank you for telling me that. I will find it. Let me take that off real fast then. Um, um, uh, I must have copied. I did a talk for them, and I must have copied their own one. That was a Wes hallucination, not not an AI hallucination. But you do have. 2 weeks ago, I met in Zoom with I've forgotten the gentleman's name. You do have lots of great training that's going on here at MSU. That was one of the things that I wanted to know about before I got here, in case I was coming in and saying, "Hey, you should do training," and there wasn't any. You've had a bunch of it going on. There is a lot of great training. and you can spam that one that I sent you. I cannot stress this enough. Please don't use any products that Michigan State has not approved. It is dangerous, actually. Um, you should be afraid of some of the new innovations that are arriving. They're well, I think it's the next one after this. You do have, please somebody look this and tell me for sure. I'm 99% sure this is training for you on how to use Notebook LM at your university. Is it Michigan as well? I'm sorry. You have access to Notebook LM, and I'll try to make sure that in the update to this, I get it to you. You have access to Notebook LM here on campus. That was one of the things that I checked out before I came. And I'm sorry I pulled those two from the wrong places. That I can't read the QR codes and I dragged them in the wrong spot. So sorry about that. Please keep getting training. Please, you do have access to Notebook LM. And this last one is the thing where the whole thing started at the subtitle. We should be scared. We should be frightened, and we should be excited. This gets at the approved thing that I was talking about. I don't know if you saw this a couple weeks ago. The person that's over the acting head of cybersecurity for the United States, bled sensitive data by using his own personal ChatGPT account when he was at home. This is called shadow AI. It's a big problem for us in the AI field right now. It's part of what I'm talking to the IT department about. Please go to training. Please use these tools. Please go to training. Please use the approved one. Please be careful. Please ask questions. Send questions. I get tons and tons of questions from people saying, is this okay to use? Is this not okay? I love those questions. It's the safest way to move forward because it is changing rapidly. For example, in your browser, you probably have had AI enter your browser this year. If you use Chrome, if you use Edge, you've seen it pop up. If you've been tempted to download Atlas, which is for Mac, the OpenAI one, please don't use those. I talked to your IT department. They do not approve the use of it. It bleeds data into the LLM. And so that's part of what I mean about using the approved. And I wanted to finish, and I know I'm at the end of my time, I wanted to finish with a 1-minute commercial. And I'm not endorsing this product, but I want to tell you why I'm showing this commercial. I get really overwhelmed by AI a lot, by the ethical concerns, by misuse, by avoidance, by so many of the things that we've talked about. I'd had a hard day, and I'd had a steady diet all day of problems and AI and all that sort of stuff. And so I told my admin, I don't have any meetings this afternoon. I'm going to go watch a movie. And so I left campus and I drove down to one of our movie theaters. And you know how they show commercials now in front of before movies? This is the freaking commercial. So you have the setup now. I'm stressed. All the problems that are on my plate. And this was the first commercial they showed. Yeah.
There's never been a better time later, probably. Please don't go to be well, be patient, to be out of my ideas or out of your depth. My breath. There's never been a better time than a medical condition. Just look at the research we do. So I have no qualifications, no resources to not understand, feel insignificant. Better to say.
I'm going to skip that because that's their commercial part of it. One of the things I appreciate about ethical discussions, good ethical discussions that I've been a part of, is that they often hold competing ideas and consider them both. That it's possible that there's never been a worse time for so many things in our world, that at the same time, it's also never been a better time to tackle some of these problems. Thank you so much for we'll talk to you. I think that's the survey link I'm supposed to end with. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh.
I think one of the biggest challenges is my own finite attention, and it's very much tied to the issue of burnout. And what I need and what I'm very grateful for, these do give us the starter pack of the most urgent things you need to attend to, and then set up thought-based that up. Think that's where I'm not perfect, and the finite attention is the sign. So I'm hoping that's going to have a better way to faculty get on board in a way to overwhelm it, but that also was allowed us to share out the,
Yeah, and I apologize for not having done a deeper dive on this, the finances of AI right now at Michigan State. At my university, we've done a multi-tiered thing where we're also funding individual departments to do training inside disciplines for faculty, because changes in the marketplace, changes in the tools that are specific. The way a chemist uses it is very different than a visual artist, and so we've done granular funding for trainings and projects at the departmental level via the colleges. The dean has a veto approval, and I have veto approval because it comes out of my account. And so I don't know about what's happening here, but I do completely hear you that we have to do some discipline-specific training, because by the way, there are disciplines that need to avoid AI for a while. It's not everybody in the pool at the same time kind of thing, and there's classes that don't need to have any AI in it, maybe ever. And so I don't mean to sound like a one size fits all sort of thing. I will try to track down and get back, because when I talked to the training staff a couple weeks ago, they told me about programs that were already going. And you have in April, May, you have another ethics week, I think, in May, and I'm going to say the most absolutely expected thing in the world. You know what is really great at helping me get my bearings? I spend an enormous amount of my day talking to AI. And confession, I go to work about 5 o'clock in the morning because I don't like the other people in my office hearing me and they're talking by myself. And so I get there early and I turn on my microphone. I like to use Gemini for this. I tell it, you're an assistant. Here's what I'm trying to think through. I got to figure out a way to do whatever. And then I just start talking, and I talk to it about it. I do the learning stuff myself. I do the learning stuff every day with it, pretty much. And so I would encourage just trying that too. Telling it your field and your discipline and stuff, and then exploring with it. I have a whole series of talks, and this is going to be part of the talk tomorrow and a little bit this afternoon, about the difference between outsourcing versus partnering. And we have so many students that are outsourcing right now, and trying to pivot to where we're teaching them how to partner is one of the real challenges that we're seeing. And I think I've got somewhere I've got to be in just a few minutes. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys listening to me.